Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and tonight we have Mr. Sean Smith on. Uh, we're talking a little bit of politics. We're talking a little bit of law and order. We're talking to someone that would like to get your vote in this upcoming elections. And without further ado, I'm going to let Sean introduce himself. And as we always say, let's go back to kindergarten so that our audience can know a little more about you than you just running for office.
Of course, of course. So if you really want to go back to kindergarten, I'll tell you, that was not my shining moment. I was a kid that got picked on a lot when I was a kid. Was smaller than everybody else. Actually grew and got bigger in college, which is not that common, but was able to play sports in college. And
What
these
high?
days, I'd
I
say I'm
mean,
a
what
pretty
what
average size
school?
guy.
What schools did you go to?
Yeah, I went to California State University, Long Beach in California.
Oh, I'm talking about your grade schools.
Oh, grade schools.
Even
Those
if
are
you
in.
weren't in Missouri, what
Yeah, I wasn't in
you know
Missouri.
about you?
My
All right.
parents raised me in a little town named Chino, California. It's east of Los Angeles. These days, it's all suburban sprawl. Back when I grew up, it had hillsides. We had a horse. I went on my first date on horseback, rode to go see a girl at her house. So my life was really different than what people think of as California these days. So I've seen the positives and negatives of growth out there. And after college, I got out of there just as quick as I could. But high school was Don Antonio Lugo High School. I was actually, as a Caucasian person, I was actually in the minority. So it was a largely Hispanic community. And it's funny, I never even noticed until somebody said, look at your yearbook. And I looked back and there was a lot of Gomez's and Lopez's and all that, but we didn't think
Sometimes
too
when
much
you're
about it back
young,
then.
you don't even see none of that.
Yeah, we didn't even think about it, right? I mean, we just were friends with who we were friends with, and if somebody didn't get along with us, we just moved on. So, but yeah, race didn't really play. Like I said, I really didn't notice. I was a soccer player, so I mean, in the 70s and 80s when I grew up, man, soccer was Hispanic, right? And so I played on a Hispanics men's team playing soccer because nobody wanted to play goalie. They wanted to all go score goals, and I'd be the goalie. I was 13 years old and 4'6". They didn't care. They didn't care if they got scored on. They just wanted to have a good time and go try to score some goals themselves. So
What college did you go to?
Cal State Long Beach. So
Run
Cal,
that down. Your freshman year to you getting out, what that experience was like, and you know,
yeah. So I actually started working full time even before I got out of high school. I worked at a music retailer, and I kept that job all the way through my college. So I worked there for a total of 8 years. Became a manager, became what they called a troubleshooting manager. So they would transfer me around from store to store when a store had a problem. Those problems would be either high employee turnover or high theft or low sales. Like those were the three metrics they measured us on. And I'll tell you what, when you know the three things that you have to do to do a good job, when there's three simple metrics, life is pretty easy. But it doesn't mean everybody could do it. And I had a knack for getting employees to stick around. When they stuck around, sales went up. And I had a knack for ferreting out the people who were not being honest. And that's where most of our shrinkage or theft was coming from, was inside the stores. It wasn't, we had somewhat of a shoplifting problem back in the day, but not like these days where you've got these, and not so much here in Kansas City, but you see the videos of people just going crazy and taking stuff. That wasn't our problem. Our problem was employees that felt like they deserved more and were willing to take it. So,
what was it like working while you had to go to college?
it wasn't that bad for me. I've always liked to stay busy, and I've always had high energy. I still am that way. I can thrive on 4 or 5 hours worth of sleep a night. People, as a legislator, people have asked me like, how am I all night long responding to their questions about property taxes? And I'm like, I'm just on fire for this stuff. I want to help people, and it keeps me energized. My doctor told me when I was in my 30s that I need to get more sleep, so I do my best, but I wake up and I'm fired up.
That's me. When did you move to Missouri?
About 25 years ago. So before Missouri we left California. My now ex-wife and I, we stayed together for 23 years, but we both knew that California was not the place we wanted to raise kids. We were both snow skiers. We both wanted to have a little guest ranch, so we moved to Colorado, had a little guest ranch for about 8 years. And then when we realized that the guest ranching business was not what we wanted to do, we decided that too many Californians had followed us to Colorado, and we decided to bug out and call Missouri home. And at the time, my son was living in his fifth house. He was 3 years old, fifth house in his third state. I did a little stint in Georgia as well on a work assignment. And I said, wherever we go this time, we're planting roots. And that's what I've done. I've absolutely declared the Jackson County area my home and have planted roots deep here.
So when did you get into politics? Let's talk about the first time politics entered into your psyche.
Oh gosh, first time it entered into my psyche was
Let me
probably,
cut you off again.
yeah,
Also, as you tell your stories, talk about some of the mentors. You know, there are people that you met that influenced you
of
on how
course.
give them their props.
Sure. Absolutely. So, well, the first one, I'll start there. First time I thought I might want to get into politics was probably when I was in my 20s. My dad was a firefighter, and I saw what I would call the tension between trying to take care of people and do the right thing versus kind of some of the constraints that government would put on people, lack of resources for them, that kind of thing. And to be truthful, I just had a wife at the time that was absolutely opposed to me getting into politics.
She was smart.
Yeah, well, she wasn't having it, and I honored that because that's in a marriage, right? You compromise and you figure out what's important to the pair of you and to the family. And so I compromised and I said, okay. And the first time I decided to actually run for something, it was 2018. By that point, I was divorced for a little while. My youngest kid was getting ready to turn 18 and graduate from high school. And I thought, okay, as a parent, like my day to day having to take care of kids is over. I no longer have to worry about what the ex-wife thinks. So I ran for state rep. I ran against somebody in Lee Summit, which is where I've resided for about 15 years now. He was the founder of the Parks and Rec Department. Great guy. Had a ton of just establishment and had been in that role for 38 years in the community. Right here I am. I've been in the community for a few years. Nobody knows me. For work, I traveled a lot. So I mean, I was kind of a ghost, but I was fired up, and I came within about 75 votes of beating him, but I didn't win, and kind of put a pin in it at that point, and then decided to run for county legislature. I'll tell you, I had a friend, Teresa Cass-Galvin, who served in the seat before me, and I had just told her, I said, if you ever decide that you want to do something else, let me know. I might be interested. And one day before filing closed in 2022, she contacted me and said, hey, I'm going to run for county executive against Frank White. She felt like that was important for her to do. And she asked me to run for the legislative seat. I ran for it. I had a really competitive primary, but I won the primary and the seat, of course. And it's been better than I ever expected. It's been worse, too, in a lot of ways. The catastrophe we've seen with the property tax issues has been terrible to see the impact on people. But I've been honored to be able to help. I'm sitting here helping people right now as we speak.
Let
So,
me interrupt you for a second.
yeah.
This property tax issue has just been a thorn in the community side. Everybody, why can't they get that right? And I want to know how much did your community contact you, personally through your on that?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess how do we fix it? The first answer to that is that you need somebody in a leadership role that has the right skills. And while Gail has been a fine person in politics and she's a competent appraiser, being able to manage hundreds of people in a multi-million-dollar system and something that impacts so many thousands of people, just needs a little bit, I think, a different kind of experience. My career background for the last 25 years is I've been in a consulting and software role for the same company, and I work with large companies, Pepsi, all of our local utility companies, Mattel, the toy manufacturer. I've worked with them and helped them through big process changes and challenges like we're experiencing in Jackson County. So early in 23, when I was sworn in and got our first couple of updates, I knew that this was a problem. And I started trying to take steps to fix it. And unfortunately, as a legislator, we just don't have the authority to really intervene much. So I've tried to help as many individuals as I can. I've tried to get the state involved to the state audit and now this attorney general's lawsuit. I think that's going to prevail. And then we're going
Tell
to
our
see.
audience a little bit about that lawsuit. I'm
Yeah,
a little bit familiar, but again, my network is more to enlighten my audience about what's going on.
absolutely.
If
I
you
love that
notice, I
question.
didn't do no pre-interview with you
Yeah.
or no questions because I like to learn as my audience learns. And the things that I think my audience wants to know about, because as you're talking, then I interrupt my guests. People say, you rude, Nelson. I'm like, I'm sorry.
No, you're not rude. I appreciate it because I get on a roll and
No,
uh,
because let me say this. The first thing that it came to my mind, you said what you did when you was in that troubleshooting.
yeah.
All right. And now uh all of this makes sense.
Yep.
A little.
I am a problem solver, man, and I don't know how that got in my DNA, but it's deep in my DNA, and it energizes me to solve problems. So the Attorney General's lawsuit against the county, the BOE, Frank and Gail, Frank White and Gail McCann Beatty as the assessor, and the county legislature are all listed as defendants. Despite being listed as a defendant, I'm personally testifying on behalf of the Attorney General. And what the Attorney General is basically saying is that, look, we had an assessment, it didn't follow the law, right? There's legal steps you have to go through in terms of letting people know that you're going to inspect their property. Those property inspections are required to meet certain standards before you can raise people's assessed value by more than 15%. We didn't follow that properly. And I will say that if I had been in office in 2022 or 2021, I might not have fully understood what the law was and how to do it properly, but I do now. And so the Attorney General's lawsuit says, look, you didn't do it properly, so we have to roll back to 2021 because 23 was unlawful. And it also says that the appeals process has had so much intermixing of the assessment department controlling that process, even though the BOE is supposed to, that's the Board of Equalization, is supposed to be the one that's taking care of appeals. The two like work so closely together that it's just not really providing people due process in the appeal process. And I'll give you an example. The assessment department really controls the schedule. So if you file for an appeal, you can't be in front of the BOE until the assessment department decides that you've done other things first, and then they'll let you have an appointment with the BOE. That's not the way the system's supposed to work. So we're gonna reform it. And the AG's lawsuit says, hey, given all these problems, you can't count the 2023 assessment values as legitimate.
So run it down to my audience what your platform is, period.
Yeah, my federal platform, I'll tell you, it's three simple things, and they each have one word that goes along with them, but I'll elaborate on each. So safety. This really goes to public safety. We've seen a deterioration in public safety here locally. That comes down to a lot of different factors: the court system, the police force. So our police forces, not just in Kansas City but nationwide, are understaffed. We've beat up on our cops, right? And there's some bad cops. We got to get rid of them, but you can't run down the whole system and then be surprised when we're down by 25% of our officers. And when we're down by 25% of our officers and we can't do things like traffic enforcement and we get people getting killed by running stop signs, we can't do things like low level drug intervention where we incorporate people into the drug courts to get them help, because we're just going to ignore those things because we've got so many serious crimes we have to take care of. You look at communities where every day it seems like people are getting cars broken into, and the only thing the police can do these days, just because of capacity constraints, is to take a police report over the phone and give them the police report so they can go to their insurance company. And it's not just here in Kansas City. It is a nationwide problem that we have a shortage of cops. And one of my proposals is to essentially bolster the police force by making training free, by encouraging people to get into that career, by really trying to move people forward there. So that's kind of my safety spiel. There's other elements to it. The other one is security. So really that deals with border security. Our borders become porous, and that's where these drugs are pouring in through. And what's happening is even right here in the middle of America, in Kansas City, the cartels are controlling the drug trade. And this is straight from the Jackson County Task Force. This is not Sean just making something up, right? So we hear about the street crime, but these cartels are really behind it. And you have to slow it down at the border, or we're going to just be, fighting back against a flood that's never going to end, that's going to continue to take people's lives and is going to drag people into bad situations. And then the final thing is success. And when I think about success, this property tax thing has made me acutely aware of what we're doing to people's homeownership possibilities, not just through taxes, but also through interest rates, also through big corporations competing against first-time home buyers. Big corporations want to buy up homes and turn people into renters. That's a terrible, terrible formula for America. People who've gotten well off, comfortable, secure financially by owning their homes, having a stable home price. So I want to have that happen. And then, of course, things like inflation and fuel prices that we really need to look at what we're spending as a government, because when we overspend and constantly go into debt, that's a big part of what's causing inflation.
All right. How about talking a little bit about these sports complexes? Yeah, the elephant in the room.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, so first off, the situation in April was extremely unfortunate. The teams, I think, bear a lot of responsibility, and I think Frank White bears some responsibility. The teams, I felt like if you wanted to move baseball to downtown, you needed to over a period of a year or more, show people from Kansas City how fantastic that was going to be. That sales effort on the part of the team needed to start way in advance, and it didn't. They should have been flying kids groups and social media influencers and other key people up to Wrigley Field and enjoying what downtown baseball looks like so they could come back and tell people this is going to be great. They didn't do any of that. They just said, we want this, and if we don't get it, we might move.
Let me interrupt you on this with a shameless plug. They never contacted Cascade, and we have a large Black audience, people of color, and all of that shows me a lot of things, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, or whether it's corporations or what have you. When they don't contact the largest Black-owned digital media company on the planet, located here in Kansas City, who are you trying to reach with your message? Did you have any problem coming on this show?
I don't have any problem coming on
this show. I'm saying that because of whatever you believe in or whatever your platform, and that's the problem where we can't really come together.
Yeah, I will say this. You mentioned that. I kind of put that in the category of this divisiveness that we seem to be stuck in. I tell you, I serve on the legislature with 7 Democrats. There's 2 Republicans, and we don't think about party lines at all, right? I really want my campaign to be one small step to try to heal divisiveness, and that means I'm focused on things that I think most people agree on. It seems like most people agree we should have a border that is secure. It seems like most people agree they want safety in their neighborhoods. And maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm misreading the room, but I don't feel like those things are divisive at all. When people want to talk to me about the divisive subjects, I do my best to say there's plenty of people that are over there arguing about that stuff. I don't need to get into that.
All right. Well, this is me with our network. I'm really focused in on, are we about to lose our democracy or plutocracy or whatever you want to call it? and is the community aware? Because of the breakdown, which you're talking about with law enforcement. My brother-in-law was set on the crime commission, Leon Harden. My godfather, called the capo, set on the crime commission. And my brother-in-law is a retired police officer. So I somewhat know two sides. I'm a minority, and uh, I know how the police have done in the past with minorities, but I think that there's some systemic issues that why around the country, from law enforcement and other things, that they're not going to be solved overnight. You're going to have to spend some money. It's like, I think any American that has a brain know that the borders have to be, you're never going to secure them, but they got to be policed a little better than what they're doing. But
Yeah.
how do you do that in a humane way? I don't really, like you said, you don't get into it. I know certain things have to be done in order for us to keep our democracy. And I'm not talking about really making the country great again or none of that, but there's
Yeah.
certain things with our defense, our military, and so forth, we have to look at, because this world is not a nice place.
Right. That's exactly right. We do live in it's a dangerous world, right? And to my eye, it looks like we're kind of almost creating an alliance of people who are not in our favor, and they don't even agree on stuff, right? So you got China, you got Russia, you got Iran, that all maybe are after us in different ways, right? China more economically, and Russia because they want to expand their borders to places that we've kind of got agreements that they shouldn't expand, and Iran philosophically, right? Those like a Chinese Communist Party and a theocracy in Iran, there's no reason for them to be banded together except to go after us. And they're banded together, right? We got to look at that and take it pretty seriously and say we got to make sure we're strong and capable, and that we go out and make friends in the world too. Because if it's going to be those three against us, we better have 97 of our buddies on our side,
Yeah,
right?
but hold it. Let me say this. Just last night, I was looking at something. We spend the largest amount on our military. I think we spent 700 and some billion on last year, and we have the largest military on the planet. Even though uh, China's, they doing their thing,
Yeah.
but it's very important to be able to collaborate. And that was the next thing I wanted to ask you on the board and working with your legislators. Uh, have you been able to collaborate on issues that you agree on?
Absolutely. So, Manny Abarca, right, represents the first in the county legislature, and he and I, as far as like some of the divisive stuff, don't agree, right? He would say gun control, and I would say Second Amendment, right? And that doesn't mean I'm all for gun safety, right? I'm all for gun safety and making sure people do the right thing and handle them smartly, and I'm all for violence reduction, just not saying that the only way to do that is to take guns out of the equation, right? Because I honestly, as a county legislator, I can't get past the Second Amendment anyway. Whatever we try to do, it's going to get stricken down by the courts. But Manny and I agree on. I'll give you an example. The property tax stuff. We both want to reform it, and he's letting me kind of take the lead, but he's right by my side, and we do joint interviews. We collaborate. We're figuring out how to solve that. Another one is this building that the county bought, which may seem like a minor thing, right? But we needed more space, but we bought the wrong building in the wrong place. Manny and I are both saying, hey, don't invest more in a bad decision. Let's cut that building out, and let's put our county administrative services somewhere that they're accessible to the community. Because we put our assessment department in a place that it's hard for people to park. There's only one handicap parking spot in the whole place. I mean, it is not the place to do that kind of business. And
But
so we're trying to
let's
get rid of it.
cut that now, and let's go to the county jail, because we need to try to cover as much as we can. Run it down.
Yeah. So county jail, we needed a new jail, right? The minute I was sworn in and got a tour of the existing facility, I looked around and I was like, this is not a humane place. If somebody was staying there for a few days before they had to go to court, that would be one thing, right? But there's people that are staying in there for 2 years waiting for their trial to be decided. First off, that's a problem. We gotta do better. But then, I mean, there's very little daylight. There's no opportunity to get outside. It's not safe for the guards. So we did need a new facility. It's unfortunate that the prior legislative team didn't lock in the price when it could have been significantly cheaper. We saw crazy price escalations because of COVID and inflation, and so we ended up paying more for the same facility as we should have. But and it's going to be a dramatic improvement. It's going to be, if you have to have dangerous people or people who you believe to be dangerous staying in jail awaiting trial, like that's what a county jail is mainly for. And they can be housed in conditions that are humane. There will be mental health facilities on board. There will be courtrooms on board, so it's safer for officers to not have to transport them back and forth. It's going to be a huge improvement. And I tell you, jail capacity, I've done some ride-alongs with the KCPD, and jail capacity, the ability to put somebody somewhere so that they can de-escalate is a real need. You get a domestic dispute, and you got a man and woman that are angry at each other and possibly violent. A common tool is to take somebody and put them on a trespass, put them away for 8 hours, and then let them out the next morning and tell them to come back. But that cooling off, I tell you what, you want to talk about violence reduction, violence against women especially, not having a tool at your disposal as an officer, like where can I put this person so they can cool off, is important. And I don't like that we have to put people in jail, but I also don't have another option when people get heated and you need to separate them.
All right. We'll give a close out here. What I would ask you is anything that you would like to talk about that I haven't covered. I just covered the things that per se was interested in. I would think my audience might be, but there might be some significant things that you want to say.
Yeah, so you briefly asked me about the stadiums. I will say I believe there's still hope to have them remain in Jackson County, remain in Kansas City. I think that requires some trilateral cooperation across the city, the state, and the county. I've offered to people to help facilitate that. I don't want to take any credit. I just want to make sure that we do the right thing for our community before decisions are finally made. And then the other thing I'll say is, I'm running against Emmanuel Cleaver. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He has done some amazing things in his life. I firmly believe that having a good competitive race, whether I win or whether he wins, that competition will give you better representation as a community. This is how we encourage our politicians to work hard for us, is we make sure that they know they have to earn it. And I look forward to people getting to know me, and I hope that I can earn their vote. And if not, if Emmanuel Cleaver earns their vote, I hope he, just does a little better for the community every day because I decided to run this race.
Well, let me say this. It was a pleasure having you on the show. And we wish you the best in your endeavor. As we always say here at Cascade Media Group, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Amen.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.